I'm Piercy Janwell, and you're listening to Unsubscribed. Every episode, I sit down with business leaders to help you question everything you thought you knew about marketing. If you enjoy this show, please do subscribe and leave a review on YouTube or your favorite podcast player. Now, on to this episode. My guest today is Cody Ruberto. Cody is from a small Canadian town called Thunder Bay. At 18, he moved to Europe to pursue his dream of being a professional soccer player, which he realized and played in the Welsh Premier League. Injuries forced Cody back to Thunder Bay, where he witnessed people were getting stranded with no ride-sharing options. And that's when he started U-Ride. U-Ride is a ride-sharing business that now does over 1 million rides per year across 15 different cities in Canada. Welcome to the Unsubscribe podcast, Cody. It's great to have you.
Pierce, great to be here, buddy. How's everything going?
Oh, it's going great, and I'm super excited to kind of dig in and learn more about your story. You know, when did you realize that you wanted to play professional soccer?
Yeah, so ever since I was like a little kid, my whole family was obsessed with soccer, and so I think I started playing when I was like 4, and ever since then, I wanted to be a professional soccer player in Europe. And I think my dad kind of planted it in my head originally, but I just fell in love with the game and fell in love with the process of just trying to improve every day. And just going after something extremely challenging where the odds of success are like, extremely low. I just loved it.
That's amazing. And what was there like a moment in time where you felt like, hey, I might be good enough to actually do this?
Yeah, so like it was kind of a weird journey. So when I was like really young, when I was like 9, 10, 11 years old, I used to train like 3 times a day and was doing really well. But then when I got to like 13, 14, I grew late. So I went from being like a pretty good player in Thunder Bay to being like one of the worst players on my team. And then like by the time I'm in high school, I'm 14 years old. I'm riding the bench for my high school team in Thunder Bay. Still wanted to be a professional soccer player. The odds of it actually happening seemed like 0 to none, and people kind of thought I was nuts. But I'd already made a decision that like I would do everything I possibly could, day in, day out, just dedicating my life to pursuing this goal. And I thought, okay, might be riding the bench right now, but if I put in the work now, like what's going to happen over the next 5 years when I'm putting in this amount of work, this amount of effort, and then 10 years, and like how far can we take this? So it was extremely hard to keep the dream alive. And honestly, there were years where it did just seem completely impossible, but it decided to just keep pushing. And again, just keep doing everything I could every single day. And then gradually over time, I improved, made progress, and slowly got closer and closer to it.
That's incredible. And I mean, as you're going through there, you're riding the bench, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this. I'm sure you had people telling you, hey, Cody, maybe this isn't the right thing to do. Maybe you should do something else. How did you just block that out and continue to focus on your goal?
Yeah. So one thing that really helped me is I just made a decision early on that this is what I'm going after, and I'm going to do everything I possibly can. There's I knew there was going to be days where I felt terrible. I knew there was going to be days where it seemed impossible. But because the decision was already made, it was like every day I just had to keep putting in the work. So for example, when I was riding the bench at 14 years old, like I would never sit on the bench. I would just be on the side practicing. My coaches would yell at me, tell me to sit down. I just wouldn't. I would just keep training on the sidelines. Every day before school, every day after school, just doing everything I possibly could. I'd be watching players that were obviously like playing in the Premier League and Serie A and just trying to learn from them. I would also reach out to people that had successful careers and just try to learn from them. And then gradually went from being like probably the worst player on my team at 14 in Thunder Bay to like improving a lot. And then we won like in my last year of high school, we won the Ontario Championships and did really well. And like then from there, you go to this next level. I took all the money I had and basically moved to Europe in this academy where you pay your own way to be on a team of foreigners. And my parents were like really, really upset. They wanted me to go to school and kind of pursue that. And the odds of success in soccer, again, were slim to none, but went after it. And again, like first year there, I was the worst player by far on that team. There were 26 of us. And like wasn't looking good, but just worked my butt off, trained 3 times a day that whole year. Was probably overtraining a lot, but like from the start of the year to the end of the year, the amount of improvement there was like insane. And then 2 of us ended up getting contracts at the end of it. Fortunately, I was one of them. And then it was the same deal. Like went into a team, was pretty excited, had improved a lot from Thunder Bay. And from there, a month into my first contract in Italy, I got injured. And it turned out it was like this, it's supposed to be this career-ending injury. Had 19 different surgeons and doctors tell me I would never play again. And it was just insane. So like got small glimpse of like some kind of success achieving this dream, and then just ripped away at I was like 19 or 20 at the time. And from there, man, it was. I
can only imagine what that was like. Like,
yeah,
so that first month, right, where you made it, you actualized your dream. Like, was it everything that you had hoped for?
Yeah, it was incredible. It was like, one of the most incredible experiences of my life, like actually playing soccer every single day and like having a contract and all that was just amazing. And constantly working, trying to get better. Again, on a team where, like when I joined that team, this time I wasn't the worst player. I was probably like in the middle of the pack, but trying to get better, trying to improve. Being around players that were way more experienced than me, it was great, man. So when it got taken away, it was.
So what was your injury? What happened?
So I was changing directions and my foot slipped and I felt this like tear in my hip, and I thought it was like a muscle strain originally, and then it turned out, then in Italy I kept trying to like play through it, got to the point where I couldn't walk after training, and then got the same issue in my other hip. And then from there, doctors in Italy just told me this is something you're going to have the rest of your life. Like probably going to be many months where you can't play. There'll be other times where you can sort of like play for fun. And I wasn't happy with that answer. So then I flew back to originally Canada, and then started seeing doctors. Well, the first doctor I saw who like had invented this kind of procedure that was supposed to help with this thing that they told me I had in Italy. He asked me, still remember going into his office after examining me and ran all the tests. He said, what would you do if you can never play soccer again? And I was just like pretty angry. I said, like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm going to play soccer again. He said, no, like, I don't want to give you false hope. I don't want you to waste any more time or energy on this. Like, you won't be able to play again. You might be able to go for jogs 2-3 times a week if you keep up with your routines and follow these things, but there's no chance of you playing or having a career after this. And that wasn't good enough for me. So actually, like, that was probably up to that date one of the worst days of my life, because like my whole life revolved around this goal, right? And then all of a sudden, it's getting ripped away from me. So I was kind of mourning for a day. Went home, was sulking. I told the doctor he was wrong and I would make it back. But yeah, super upset. And then after that, one day in the morning, I just got to work. I said, there's got to be someone in the world that can fix me. And I just went on this journey to meet as many different surgeons and people as possible until I could find someone who thought they could sort of resolve this. And it was a crazy journey from there. Flew across like Canada and the US, meeting with different doctors. I had 19 different people tell me kind of the same thing, like, you're never going to play again. It's not worth giving you false hope and wasting your time. And then there was one doctor who had like invented this new hip surgery in the US who thought he could fix me. And then the surgery was ridiculously expensive. It was money I didn't have. And I had to figure out how to get that operation. From there, those first 2 surgeries didn't work with this like top hip surgeon in the world. And then I basically didn't know what to do. Couldn't play, was in constant pain. And then there was this other guy in Philadelphia who I went to go see, and he was like invented some surgeries for like outside the hip joint. And basically he told me before going in, he said, like, I don't know if this is going to help you. Like, you could get the surgery. I just know that if you don't get it, you're never going to play again. If you get it, like maybe it helps, but I have no idea if this is going to work. Like you're pretty messed up. And I got the surgeries with him. Again, there was a whole story there where, again, didn't have much money. So I actually ran out of money in Philadelphia. Was down to my last dollar. Went like probably a day and a half, 2 days without eating, trying to figure out how to get this surgery. The surgery got canceled 3 times because I couldn't make payment. It was nuts, but ended up getting it done. And then that surgery, I had a surgery on both hips at the same time. And so now we're like 4 operations in, 2 on each side. And then those didn't work. And then I had this incredible physiotherapist who, like, we just started experimenting with all these different things. There were certain things that would give me like relief for 5 minutes, certain exercises, and something called active release. And anyways, like I just started doing more of those things that gave me relief for 5 minutes. And eventually I backed off anything that caused me pain. Eventually got to the point where I could walk pain free. It took a couple months to get to that point. And then from there, started jogging for like 30 seconds, right? And like pain free, and then a minute, and then 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes, then started accelerating, then started changing directions. And like, then got to the point where I was healthy enough to like make it back to soccer. And I remember, catching a flight back to Italy. When I landed in Rome, I actually just started like bawling on the plane. It was kind of a little bit embarrassing, but it was just like, yeah, one of the most incredible moments of my life, because that was like everything that sort of happened in business, everything that, like building a company is hard and all these different things, but actually the journey in soccer is harder than anything that I've done in my life up to this point by far. So, yeah, it kind of reaffirmed too.
Wow,
like,
that is a wild story. Yeah, like I actually have had hip surgery once, and I can not imagine multiple times and trying to come back from that. That is amazing.
That's
good for you, man. Yeah.
It actually teaches you a lot about like business. So there were certain things there that like kind of helped today. So I had to figure out, usually to get in for an appointment with a surgeon, it takes like a year and a half for like some cities in Canada, right? So you had to figure out how to get in like a week or 2 weeks. So like being good on the phone, figuring out how to like kind of navigate and make things happen. And just, there were so many experiences I can take from that particular time that like actually use in business almost every day or every week here.
No kidding. So you get all of these surgeries, you work incredibly hard, you do the physio, you go back to Europe to play professionally again.
I went, I was in Italy, and I was kind of bouncing up and down in the like lower leagues there. And then I had the opportunity to go to Wales, and ended up, even Wales, it's pretty funny. I went on trial with this team. I guess they had seen me playing somewhere else and invited me to try out. And then I remember even looking to sign there. Like my goal at the start of every season was to be on a team where I'm the worst player, right? And then just try to improve, try to get better, because it forces you to stretch. So before signing a contract there, the coach pulled me aside after like, being on trial for a couple of weeks. He said like, listen, I think your attitude's great. I think you're a good player, but like, just want to be honest with you. If you sign, like, you're probably not going to play a game. You're probably going to be in the stands most of the time. We already have I'm a striker. So it's like, we got other strikers who are, going to be starting, and that's just it. So I want to be upfront with you. Your playing time isn't going to be much. I said, perfect. The only thing I ask is, at some point throughout the year, if I get an opportunity, if you want to give me that, I'll be ready for it and I'll take advantage of it. And so I signed the contract. And then actually first game of the season, we had a couple injuries. So I was on the bench. I wasn't in the stands. And then in the warm-up, it's like unfortunate for my teammate. He ended up getting injured in the warm-up of the first game of the season. And then so I was starting that game up front as striker, and then ended up scoring 2 goals, had like one of the best games of my career, and then was starting for the team. And that was the start of my career in Wales. But it was, kind of wild how life goes.
That's incredible. Good for you. I can only imagine just the perseverance that you did, and everyone telling you, no, you can't do it, it'll never happen, and just not listening and forging your own path.
That's it. No, soccer was a crazy journey for sure.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
so then, you have this career playing pro soccer. You end
Yeah.
up back in Thunder Bay. Tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about how, you ride came about.
Yeah. So this was like 2017. Ended up getting injured again. So this time, similar hip problems, but like way worse. So the amount of people that have like made it back from these two surgeries is like, you can probably count them on your hand. And yeah, the doctors told me this was pretty much the end of my career. So I went back to Thunder Bay and had a couple operations in the U.S. again. So I'm on 6 hip surgeries now, and then basically every time I'd go out, end of the night, I'd see crowds of people stranded with no ride home, in like -30. And it was insane. You'd see these crowds of people. There were like very few taxis around. Every time a taxi pulled up, there'd be like 10 people jumping it, trying to get inside. And people used to wait over an hour for rides. If it was a holiday, you could wait 3 to 4 hours. So people would start walking home in these temperatures, maybe like 30, 45-minute walk home in -30. Or a lot of people would drink and drive. And it was just a huge, huge problem. So I've actually had friends who have been killed by impaired drivers. I have one friend who was driving drunk when I was growing up, and he killed someone. And I just thought this is a problem that shouldn't exist. And so I basically had this time off soccer where I knew in my head, I knew I would get back to playing. But thought, have this time off, like, let's try to fix this problem in Thunder Bay. So I started giving free rides to people, and that really didn't do much. And so I just said, we got to find a solution here. You couldn't do ride sharing in our city. And again, keep in mind, I knew nothing about business, nothing about bylaws, about tech, anything. But yeah, I just knew, okay, you can't do ride sharing. So then I'm like, okay, what can we do? There's an incredible organization called Operation Red Nose. In December every year, in a lot of communities, they give free rides to people, and it's all by donation. I just think it's a great cause. And so I reached out to them about just like, hey, can we run this all year round? Drinking and driving is a huge problem all year. Like, let's get this. If we get you an app, if we get you a platform and figure this out, can we just, help prevent impaired driving all year round? All the money will be donated to charity, and we'll just take it from there. And it got shut down from head office. So then we were sort of back to square one. And I started reading the bylaw again. And then I saw this line in there that said limousines could set their own rates. I'm like, okay, limousines can set their own rates. Maybe we can do something with this. So I started reaching out to the limousine companies. So I called the limousine company in Thunder Bay and just told them this idea, like, hey, can we put your cars on this platform, get up and running, and, try to fix this problem here. They hung up on me, thought I was nuts. And then I basically went to, there's only 2 limousine companies in Thunder Bay. So we're like on the last shot now. I walked into the office of this place called Granite Town Cars. And I went in and talked to them, and I said, hey, like, your cars are parked the majority of the time. Whenever they're parked and you don't have a booking, can I fill these cars with drivers, put it on the road, and we'll just pay you for every ride that we give, right? And like, if it works out, we can prevent impaired driving here. We can get people home safe. We can fix this problem in Thunder Bay. And if it doesn't, you'll be in the same position that you are right now. And if it does work out, it'll be like a great thing on your end. You'll be making money and you won't have to do any work. And so they thought I was nuts too, but they decided to give us a shot and go along with it. And then from there, it was just chaos. We had to figure out how to launch this platform. Didn't have a lot of money. We started the company with $3,000. And even when it came to getting an app, it was like, building an app, I started reaching out to different companies and people to build this. They told me like minimum $200,000 to $300,000 to build an app. Then started looking at companies that had gone bankrupt, started looking at every possible option, and then worked out a deal where we basically got a platform up and running for under $3,000, and actually started the whole business with that. And then
wait a minute here, because like, if I look at your competitors, right?
Yeah.
Combined, I did some research a bit earlier. They have raised like $30 billion. You're telling me that you built an app that does essentially the same thing for $3,000?
We got it up and running. So we basically partnered with a company that already had something built that hadn't gone very well and didn't have a lot of people. And we made a deal where we just like pay them a little bit more money over time, but up front almost like nothing. And they did the deal. And
wow,
yeah. So
that's
it's like
incredible.
we were able to, like, from that, it was like well, I could even go along, but we got far. Like we got up to, it's probably like before we got any kind of like, we haven't raised lots anyways, but before we got any like another additional dollar, we're doing like, customers are spending around 200,000 a month. So from $3,000, and that's it. Just using whatever came in to try to grow the company. A lot of pain and suffering along the way and times where we should have died. But the early days of U-Ride, it's pretty hilarious. If you booked, in the early days, I was basically, I had the two operations. So right when we launched, whenever you ordered, I was staying in my uncle's basement at the time. I used to crutch in and out of their house all hours of the night. It'd be like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. I'd wake them up with the crutches, throw my crutches in the passenger seat, drive, go pick someone up. They'd hop in and they'd see this person in a huge hip brace. They'd see crutches that they'd have to like move over to get in beside me. They'd be like, "Are you okay to drive?" Like, yeah, come on in. It's all good. And then as we're driving, my phone, like we couldn't afford employees. So we had no employees, no dispatchers, and it was a 24/7 business. And so my phone would be ringing constantly in the car with customers that have to pull over, help a driver with, whatever's going on, or respond to a customer support ticket, and then keep driving and then stop the trip early so the customer doesn't get overcharged. And it was just, man, it was insane. The first like 6 months was just like a blur, just complete chaos. And then trying to squeeze in like physio in between, because still trying to make it back to soccer, obviously. So I'd like go do physio and then leave 2 or 3 times between that to go give rides, and just, chaos.
So this was with the town cars that you were doing this first part. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have grown a lot more from that point. Like, did they change the bylaws? How did you get around that?
Yeah, so they changed the bylaws, and then we started working on our own insurance policy to operate. Like we knew that. Get into the story maybe another day of like the chaos of trying to grow with this model. But eventually we did switch over to people using their personal cars. We provide them with commercial insurance anytime that they're on the platform. And that's when we really started to grow and sort of hit another level here.
And so you didn't have any employees at first. When did you realize like, hey, this has potential here? Maybe we need to pivot to getting people driving their own cars. Yeah.
So just like for us, the only thing we cared about, like we weren't really thinking about, all this growth and all these different, the only thing we cared about was just getting people picked up. And so demand was through the roof. When we launched, I basically put a post on my personal Facebook the night before we launched. And then that post like went viral in Thunder Bay, and we started to get downloads coming in and people booking rides. And then from there, a CBC article came out, and then thousands of downloads started coming in. We started getting way more demand than we could handle. And it was just like limousine companies started buying more cars, and we started growing that way. Then we started finding other partners. There was like another busing company that had these like limousine licensed vehicles that we were able to get through there. And then there was another loophole in like the insurance policy where basically people could lease their cars to this company, fall under their commercial insurance so that passengers, drivers are protected, and licensing. And then we were able to go that way. But just demand was going through the roof, and we knew we had to do something. And so that's when we started working on this insurance policy, and that was insane too. Took us like
and so Cody, like you mentioned you did a Facebook post, you got coverage in CBC. Like, did you have a PR firm or an agency? How did you do all of that?
Not at all. Just literally, it's probably not the best way to launch a business. It worked out for us, but yeah, I just waited. I knew this was such a huge problem that if someone came along and tried to fix it, I knew there would be demand for it. So there were no PR agencies. Just we also had like no money. So obviously we can't hire anyone or pay for any ads or PR agency. So it was just like, I don't know, put this post on my personal Facebook just about this problem and how I thought it shouldn't exist and how things have been this way for like 20 or 30 years and we're going to try to change it. And I think people just connected with it, right? Most people in my town knew about the problem and just wanted to support it. I wasn't expecting CBC to reach out. I guess they just saw the post and then called us. So that was super random. But then we also learned something from that. It's like, man, the amount you can grow organically with like zero spend is kind of wild. And we like figured out how to get more articles coming out. And we used to do these random like Facebook videos, just talking about what was going on and us working on building the company, and people connected with it. And we'd start to like these videos would start to go viral. And we had like no marketing budget, but we were able to grow quite a bit in the early days.
So what was that like at the beginning? You know, you post a Facebook post, you get this coverage, and you're just watching all of these downloads come in. Like, was it surreal? Was it a surprise, or did you feel like you knew that was going to happen?
I knew it was a huge problem. I wasn't expecting out of the gate this much like demand for it. And then there were only a couple moments. So like most of the time building the company, I would say 95% of the time, it's like problems and stress and just trying to figure out how to solve the next issue. And you're so in it that you're not thinking about, like, hey, this is pretty cool. All these orders are coming in. It's like, you need to fulfill these orders. You got to figure out how to get drivers on the road and fix these problems. And so that was most of the time. One of the coolest moments that I had in the early days, though, and like I'll never forget this. It was like a month after we launched, and obviously with us launching, the taxis stepped up their game too. So I saw a taxi parked in front of a bar, just sitting there waiting for someone to get out and come inside. And like I'd never seen that before. I'd never seen it where like ahead of time, taxis were parked in front, just waiting for you, right? But their level of service was great for the first probably 2 or 3 weeks after we launched. And it got me thinking, like, you really can fix problems that are out there, right? Just because something is the way that it is doesn't mean it always has to be that way. If you want to fix it, you can actually, make a pretty big impact. So that was super cool to see. That's like a moment I'll never forget, probably for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's amazing that you really started that change and they had to respond. And the result was more people getting home safely.
100%.
Take me back to you have all these orders, or you have all these downloads now. You're like, I don't know how many there were, but probably more than what you could support with your fleet of limousines. Like, how did you approach that in terms of like, now you have, how many downloads did you have in those early days? And how did you approach making sure you have enough drivers to support it?
Yeah. So basically, after the CBC article came out, we hit over 1,000. Well, no, sorry. First 24 hours, we hit 1,000 downloads, which for us was like insane. And then from there, when the CBC article came out, we started getting like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 downloads, and it was just mind blowing. And then the orders start coming in, and we did whatever it took. Like I used to beg family and friends to go out and drive. Like in the early days, I'd grab a crew of like some of my best friends, some family. We'd get together, we'd go pick up these cars and like head out for the night. And then from there, when we started growing and getting bigger, it was like every Friday, Saturday night, especially. Weekdays were a little bit easier to handle, but every Friday and Saturday night, like we would have to beg people to come online. We would like, if someone had to, stay home and cook and do these different things, like we bought dinner for families so that, to be able to go out and drive. I've offered to babysit so that, we can get extra drivers out on the road, like whatever. It was a lot of chaos. And there were so many people that cared about this mission, like all of the community, the support we had from like passengers and people spreading the word about it was incredible. But then all the drivers, like we had a ton of people that knew about this problem and wanted to fix it. And early days wasn't a good job for people. It was chaos, but they really like tons of great people just stepped up to help build this thing.
What do you think it was about your mission that got people to really connect with it?
Yeah. So like one thing I think about just in business is like, I think how painful is the problem, right? So like if you're ever looking to start a business or do something, like how painful is this issue that you're trying to solve? And for us, not a lot of people know this, but like, if it's imagine it's 2:30 in the morning. You're kicked out of the establishment where you're at. You step outside and it's the coldest temperature you've ever felt. It's dark. There's hundreds of people all around you, all trying to get home, and there's no rides. Like, what do you do, right? A lot of people hop into their cars and drive after they've had a couple drinks. A lot of people, like I said before, walk home in these temperatures. So I think the problem was so painful for people originally in Thunder Bay, that, yeah, it's like, I don't know, man. I think that's why they connected, like someone coming along to just try to fix this thing, like the whole community. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like there was a huge force behind us, right? And then same deal. We started getting communities across the country, like these smaller towns reaching out saying, we have the same problem that you have. Please expand to our area. And everywhere we went, we just noticed the same problem exists. And yeah,
I experienced the problem firsthand just last summer before You Ride expanded to Prince Edward County. I was there with some friends, and it was like a time machine. Like I was going back to pre-ride sharing apps. I actually forgot what that was like, like looking up on Google, it used to be the phone book, but looking up on Google, I think there were 3 different cab companies, and this was early in the night. I called them. 2 of them didn't even answer the phone. And then the third one was just like, oh, we're super busy tonight. Like I have 1 driver on the road and I don't think I can drive you guys out. We managed to, so my friend drove his car down there. We left it there overnight. And I thought that we were going to have to hitch a ride back with like the kitchen staff of the restaurant. But I guess always having lived in a bigger city, you kind of take it for granted now what's available. But I was happy to hear You Ride expanded to Prince Edward County. It's great. And it is a huge pain.
That's it. I remember our conversation. You sent me a message on Facebook, and then pumped that we have the service there. And the problem is this, like right now we're in 15 cities. Like this bottom layer of like forgotten, underserved communities that still have this problem, there's like 18,000 of them around the world. So we got a ton of work ahead of us. If you live in a bigger city, a lot of people don't know this problem exists. But that's why we're like so focused. Whole team's working extremely hard. And we got a long, long ways to go, man.
So I mean, when you look at starting a business, I think you nailed it, right? You want like an acute problem and have the medicine to solve that pain. And you guys have definitely found that. I also think when you start a business, you look at, the competitors, the competitive landscape. I mean, I guess in these underserved communities, there essentially is no competitors, but in the rideshare space, there are some gigantic, 800-pound gorillas. How do you look at competition and how does that impact how you run the business?
Yeah. So one thing for us, and I think it's true for most businesses, like we're just obsessed with our passengers and our drivers. So in these communities, like we live in these communities, we grew up in these communities, we know the people, we know the problem. We've been obsessed and we've dedicated a huge portion of our life to solving the problem for these specific areas. So again, we're just obsessed with that. As far as competition, it's scary when, let's say if like the biggest rideshare company in the world or one of them comes in and you're like competing with them, right, in these areas. We actually had that recently. And the cool thing is in one of our cities, that city has actually grown like within a month of a competitor announcing their launch and actually getting up and running. We've grown our ride volume by like 53% in a month. So we're like really, really obsessed with being the best in the world at operating in these communities and basically just fixing this problem everywhere. And I think that it's our core focus. And if it's not the core focus of a larger company, I think that there's a lot of opportunity to basically expand and be the best in the world in these areas. I think that's same thing for a lot of different like companies and areas, right? There could be like a huge giant in your industry, but are they obsessed with the problem that you're tackling? Right. And are they going to put in the blood, sweat, and tears that it takes to solving this problem for this area?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So when you look like a bit further out, I know every day has its challenges, and you're battling competitors, and you're trying to get drivers, and you're trying to make sure everyone has a good experience. When you look further out, like, what do you see as the future of URide?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that are running through our heads, and we think that there's a ton of problems we could solve in these areas. Right now, we're hyper focused on being the best in the world at solving the transportation challenges in this bottom layer, right? Those 18,000 cities, billion people living in these markets. So over the next few years, we see ourselves expanding to thousands of these smaller communities across the world and fixing this problem there. The other thing is, every single city that we launch, we build a local network effect. So you get a huge amount of people in the city downloading your app and having it on their phone. And for us, I think that we can solve a lot of other problems that these cities are facing. So long term, we want to power underserved communities. We want to basically be the best place in the world for a local entrepreneur to start and grow a service-based business, and then connect them to all the customers in their city that need their service. So if you're someone in a city like Thunder Bay, if you need rides, deliveries, or any kind of service like getting your driveway shoveled or your lawn cut, we'll connect you to a local entrepreneur who will take care of that job. So we think we can create millions of jobs for people. We think that we can power all these underserved communities and solve a lot of challenges they're facing, and just give them access to a lot of the things that larger communities currently have. And then on top of that, there's this whole other side of URED, which is we love doing good deeds. We love helping people. Our first core value is make people smile. And from the early days, even when we had no money and we were really struggling, no money, no employees, we take a portion of rides each month and donate it to local charities, or buy some families groceries, or just do something to try to help and try to do good in these communities. So that's something that I'm really excited about. The bigger we get in these communities, I think, the more we can grow that side of the business too, just helping people, giving back. And I think this is, I'm kind of going on a rant here, but let's say you have 100 drivers in a city of 100,000 people, right? If you can encourage everyone to do one nice thing or one good deed per day, that's 36,500 good deeds per year. In 3 years, you've done good deeds for the whole community. And the other thing that happens too is when you do something nice for someone else, often they pay it forward and they do something nice for the next person and the next person. So we think that on top of creating all these different opportunities, solving these different problems that these underserved communities are facing, we think that we can make them happier, more prosperous places to live. And so that's something that, for the next 100 years, I want this to be a core part of UREN and a core part of what we do.
That's awesome. I'd love to touch a little bit more on your core values. What are they at URide? How did you build them, and how do you really build that into the DNA of your culture?
Yeah, so we're working on it. I've actually learned a lot from you about just implementing core values, and you've done a lot of work. If people haven't read it, go check out the stuff that you've done. But our core values right now are make people smile. So like I said, doing good deeds, helping people, trying to make a difference, making our passengers smile, making our drivers smile. No sugarcoating. So this one is something that we basically noticed that you got to be able to talk to people directly. And when something's going wrong, you can't hide it. It's got to come to the surface right away. I think those are things that could kill a company over time. So no sugarcoating. If there's a problem, come up and say, there's a huge issue here. Here's what I've tried to solve it. Here's what I'm currently trying, and here's where I need help. I think that's critical. And we sort of added that one in just from experience. And then there's always a way. So the whole soccer journey that I told you about, the one thing that I told myself, honestly, probably 50 times a day, was there's always a way. And so for us, we believe there's a way past every single obstacle that we're facing. And we just won't stop until we find a way past every single challenge that comes our way. So those are our 3 core values right now. Things that we're looking to add in are just being scrappy, doing more with less. I think we were incredible at this in the early days because we had no money and no resources to work with. I think that we need to keep that same scrappiness, and I want to see a little bit more of that. So the team's doing a good job kind of implementing it. And then our other ones are basically urgency. So move fast. Like we had this thing I told you about, like Fridays and Saturday nights, how we had to get cars on the road, right? We just people not getting picked up or having long wait times wasn't an option for us. And it was almost like a panic when we didn't have that. So that sense of urgency, that feeling to like solve whatever problems there are, has to be like a key part of URide. So that's another one that we're working on adding. And then being an owner. So treating this as your business, and just owning your area of the company, making decisions, taking charge, treat it like it's your company. And yeah, so those are the core values.
Yeah.
Now,
I love those. Yeah, some really
yeah,
good ones in there.
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, this has been awesome, Cody. It's been so interesting just hearing about your story and URide. I do want to ask you some quick rapid fire questions
Yeah,
that we ask everybody.
yeah.
The first one being, what's one marketing trend that you would unsubscribe from?
Yeah, so I think like in a lot of small towns, radio is still a big thing. We've been testing it and we've just had a lot of like not a lot of results. So radio is something that we're not running anymore. Yeah.
Cool. And is email dead?
No, I think email is still alive and well. I think that we need to do a much better job with it. But for example, like I get emails from Skip all the time, and whenever I'm going to order food, like it pops into my head, okay, like for some reason I just always click on Skip first. So yeah, I think email is alive and well.
At NAC, we're all kind of about, work-life balance and having hobbies and stuff outside of work. What do you do for fun?
What do you do for fun? I love soccer. So I even like when URide was running, I got healthy, got back to Europe, and was playing soccer. Like my first contract in Wales, it was actually after launching URide. So playing soccer, I still love it. I like skateboarding. I like learning things. So like my time towards this has been like very limited, but like trying to learn guitar, trying to learn other languages. Yeah. So I actually like driving is my favorite part of all this. So just like anyone who's listening to this, I always try to convince everyone to be a driver, but like it's honestly, it feels like you're going to a bar or a restaurant and you get to talk to every single person there and you learn so much every night. Like Pierce, like most of us, we sort of like hang out with people that are similar. You might have buddies that are in tech, running companies or whatever. And like we're sort of in this bubble. When you drive, you get all different people, all walks of life. You learn something new every single shift. You get a new perspective from all different angles. And yeah, so my favorite hobby is actually like just getting behind the wheel and driving.
Yeah, that's awesome. Who's one person you admire in the business community and why?
Yeah, so someone I followed for a long time is actually like Brian Chesky from Airbnb. And I think that the amount of challenges that they've had and like serious problems, they've probably had more than most companies. But the way that they deal with hardships and the way they address problems like head on, I think it's been incredible. And the whole scope of their business, the different aspects that they've had to learn and deal with as they've been scaling is just like mind blowing. So he's someone I definitely follow and look up to.
Nice. Yeah, he had a good podcast on Decoder lately. I don't know if you've checked that one out, but
I haven't seen it. I'll have to check it
out. Yeah, what's sort of one piece of career advice that you've learned over time that you think might help others?
Yeah, so I think that just reaching out to people that are further down the line and learning from them is incredible. And it really speeds up your learning. And I think it drastically increases your odds of success. So even like Pierce, like I reached out to you, I don't know what, year and a half, 2 years ago. You're miles ahead in the journey. But yeah, I learned a lot from you. I learned a lot from others. So there's people that I reach out to that I think like, why would this person even talk to me? Why would they ever return my call? And these people will actually come on to multiple calls with me, will mentor me, will learn so much. So reach out to people who are further ahead. And even if you think this person will never respond to you, you'll be surprised. Every single person that's in a position where, you look up to them and this and that, they've had so many other people who've helped them along the way. And a lot of them want to give back. So that's my piece of advice.
That's awesome. And the last one, who else do you think we should have on the Unsubscribe podcast?
Oh man, there's there's a lot of people I could think of. So who should I think of? So I have friends that okay, there's one friend, Marko Mitrovic. He was like professional soccer player. If anyone on this knows Chelsea, like Chelsea bought him when he was 14 from his club in Sweden, Malmo. He was playing professional soccer, ended up having like 5 major major ankle surgeries, overcame a ton of stuff, really affected his career, and then ended up starting, he started like a CBD company for sports like a year and a half ago. And man, he's just crushing it. Like
cool.
Overcoming everything that gets in his way. He's one person. Another person I was talking to last night, actually one of my best friends, one of my old teammates. He was playing professional soccer up until what was it? Well, like this year, he was signing with a new club, and he was having these problems breathing when he was playing, and teams couldn't really figure out what was going on. And so he actually got offered a great contract with a new club, went to sign the contract. You have to pass a medical. During the medical, they found these heart issues, and serious heart issues where he could have dropped dead on the field, pretty extreme. So he couldn't play soccer, and he was just hasn't played for the past might be, I can't remember, 6 months to a year now. And he started on the side, just started sharing all of his knowledge, started studying every single thing about soccer. And he created a TikTok channel, Instagram, all this stuff. And he's just crushing it. He's getting over 4 million views, I think, a month or every 2 months now. And it's just this whole thing is blowing up. And man, his mindset, most people, when they face these type of hardships where everything you've worked for, you're literally going to sign the best contract you've signed in your life, and you fail the medical because it's a heart issue and you can't play right now. Taking that and putting all the energy into building this and helping other players has been insane. And the business that he's building on it now is pretty cool. So he's another person, Remy Howarth.
Nice. Yeah. We'd love to chat with both of them.
Yeah.
Cody, this is it's been incredible having you on here. I love your mindset of wanting to be the worst player on the team. And I feel like it's such an entrepreneur mindset that you have that helps you deal with adversity, overcome the impossible. Not, so many people, they get told no, and then they just say, oh, well, I guess that's the way it is. And I think to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to push through that. No successful entrepreneur has stopped at that first no. And I think that you've really demonstrated the perseverance, both through your injury and starting URide, into, becoming a pro and growing this company to 15 cities. I love the mission that you have to get people home safely. And I'm not surprised that it's growing quickly and that you're doing millions of rides a year. So thank you. You mentioned you learned from me. I learn a lot whenever I talk to you, and really excited to continue to watch your journey, and we'll be supporting it from the sidelines. So thank you so much for coming on today, Cody.
Buddy, thank you for everything. Like you said, I've learned a lot from you, and you actually taking the time to talk to me. You were one of the people that I thought would never kind of sit down and have a conversation with me. I didn't know who you were. You didn't know who I was. And I appreciate you giving us the time and helping us with a lot of things, especially around culture. So keep crushing it, buddy.
Thank you. And so where can people go to learn more about you and URide?
Yeah, so URide, you can go to uridetech.com. Actually, we just changed it, uride.co. I think that changed today. And then you can go to URide's Instagram page, uridetech.com. I'm on LinkedIn, just Cody Ruberto. I'm on Instagram, Cody Ruberto. If anyone basically wants to chat, if I can help anyone listening to this in any way, reach out to me. My email is cody@uridetech.com. Just keep pushing.
And it's there's always URide Y or URIDE.co.
Yeah, exactly. .co.
Awesome.
Yeah.
.co. Right on. Thank you so much, Cody.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for listening to Unsubscribed, a podcast created by Knack. If you enjoyed this episode of Unsubscribed, be sure to subscribe to my podcast and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. If you have any feedback or want to chat, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter at marketing_101. Cheers.